There's no better day than today to start your homestead and get ready for 2025. Now, it could be absolutely a daunting task to start homesteading and get the process going, but today we're going to talk about 5 steps to get you started on your homestead. For those of you who are already on your homestead and you're already homesteaders, make sure you list down below what were your first projects that you started on your homestead. Give us some insight, what was good, what was bad. So make sure you leave your comment down below, and we look forward to developing this conversation further. Now let's get started on our 5 things to do when we're starting our homestead. Gotta have my notes because I'm not very smart. So first things first, when we're developing our homestead and we're getting everything started, you've got your dream property, you've got everything there, but you're lacking where you're going to start. The first thing is to put everything on paper first and be very meticulous about it. So the first thing I'm going to do is encourage you to go right now, go over to that sidebar over there while we talk and hit on that tab, click on Google, and then search your address on Google Maps, and then take an overhead, basically do a screenshot of your, property from satellite image, and then basically from there you can either print it. I had an iPad Pro, so I can save it over in my iPad Pro, and with my pencil I can jot down and write on it. That works as well if you're a digital person. Sometimes I do like the old school, you know what I mean? Get a pen and paper. And so again, I encourage you to first go do that. That it will be the biggest saving grace that you've ever had. So go do that real quick. So now that you have that, we're putting pen to paper. We need to start marking up where all of our resources are. So if you have a barn, obviously make sure that barn is there. Sometimes those Google satellites don't pass over for a year or two. They might not snap photos all the time of your thing. So if you've added a barn, you've added some other infrastructure since it's last flown over, make sure that you add that in. The next thing we need to highlight is everywhere there is a water spigot or electrical panel. We need to know where electricity is, and so we can best develop our homestead. Yes, in a perfect world, it would be amazing if we could just had all the funds in the world and we could run power and water and everything, sewage, whatever you need done. We could put it everywhere we need. But the reality is, especially when you're brand new on this homestead, that's not going to be an opportunity that you have. However, we do have it to where we can mark it up and plan ourselves properly. So hopefully we don't have to do any of that. And what's even worse, if after we do it, we don't have to do it a second time because we did not plan properly the first time. Given the infrastructure that we have, we've marked our electricity and our water and where our barns are at. Make a list of the projects that you would like to have. Before we get into putting up fences and doing all of this stuff, we need to know where everything is going to go. So utilizing that information, then we can start to put on paper, not yet into practice yet, put it on paper where our things need to go. And that could be fence lines, maybe barn structures, but we got to have electrical power out there first. Because again, digging up and sending electrical and water out could be very, very expensive. So on the short term, if we can go ahead and run power from our barns or our house out to these structures or these pastures, whatever it might be, it's going to save us tens of thousands of dollars as well as tons of headaches to plan properly in the beginning. So I will repeat this, and I will repeat this again. We've written down all of these things, right? We've wrote down the goats. Of course, we got egg layers. We got egg layers. Then we got to have some meat birds, right? Then we got to have sheep. Then we got to have goats. And I want to have cows. You can't do all of this at one time. These are going to be phases. I like to call it kind of like how people write menus. When restaurants open, they have different phases of the menus. I call it chapters. I never called it a menu. I always called it a chapter. So when we're writing that chapter, that's for the skill level and for the infrastructure that we have in place at that time. We need to do that again for our homestead. We need to develop what we can do first to get the ball rolling. So to keep in mind, as we are starting to put pen to paper, we do have a couple things that we need to keep in mind that we often forget, and I'll be the first one to admit it. we need to keep a couple little things in mind. So first one's first is the topography of our land. How are the hills and how does that affect the homestead? And is it good for me to be developing on this land? When was the last time you walked up that slope? You've seen everything. You know, I've met people who are like, oh, I'm going to put this garden over here. It's like, man, that's like a borderline mountain. That's going to be, not to mention your soil constantly running off. You're going to be losing your back hauling water up there constantly. So it's very important that we keep the topography of our land in mind. Next, what natural water features do we have? Does water naturally run? Like our water naturally kind of runs through the chute, which typically is not that big of a deal until you get a hurricane, and that is a river that runs through there. We need to know that, because that means we got we have to have this barn right here for major weather incidents to where we can pull all of our animals up here so they don't get flooded. That could also be lakes and ponds and things like that that will provide natural water solutions for your livestock. Any creek runs or anything of that has to be tracked. The creeks provide a couple different options of danger. First things first, of course, is the flooding. The last thing you need is for your homestead to get cut in half because your creek has turned into a river. The second part is, in my opinion, those creeks also bring in critters. It's very difficult to keep critters kind of from using that as a highway. And here in Mississippi, sometimes that could be simply a raccoon. That could also be an 8-foot alligator. So you've got to constantly kind of keep track of that creek and what's going on there. It's not that creeks are a bad thing. It'll provide in some fresh water, hopefully. You do need to keep track of it because what goes from upstream now flows onto your property downstream. So again, that's kind of important thing to keep track of. Our last homestead in Starkville had a creek that ran through it, but unfortunately that creek runoff was from a mall area and it made everything really nasty. It was full of trash. It made for a giant pain in the butt. Next is how the sun hits your property. Now that might seem a little OCD, but right now our sun's hitting us from over here, kind of going over. It's making my video today a little difficult, but the sun and how it hits, how is that going to affect us? And that's because where our gardens are going to sit. If you're planting garden or greenhouses, anything of that nature, you know, make sure that your greenhouse is in a capable spot of getting that sunlight year round. What could easily happen is that, well, midday when you're out there dreaming, it looks like you've got sunlight, but by the end of the day, that greenhouse is half underneath a tree. That could be absolutely harmful to a greenhouse. So we got to keep that in mind as we're going through. Again, how does that sun hit our land and how does it affect our land? The next thing that we have to keep in mind here, and it's the last thing, is how we're going to affect our neighbors. Now, I'm blessed here because all of the people around me, they kind of either homestead or they have farms or they do gardens. So they're kind of into my lifestyle. I have not always had that pleasure, unfortunately, of having people who are on my side. My dad, who we've got amazing videos with, we'll leave in a link down below. He lives in an HOA neighborhood. So they are like the opposite of homestead friendly. And so we got to see how what we're doing and planning affects everyone around us. That could be, on the simple terms, you know, it's the pigs. You know, if you're putting it too close to your neighbor, how's that going to affect them? Like, you don't want your neighbor to have to smell it. You don't want your neighbor to be your enemy. You want your enemy to see it as a benefit that you're growing there. So for us on our homestead, we had a couple things in mind that we knew that we wanted to do. We knew we wanted to get into meat sheep. We knew we wanted dairy goats. We knew we wanted a garden, meat birds, we knew we wanted to get into pigs. And then we wanted just a very lavish garden. Now, there are some things that are down the road that as we turn this more into a homestead business that we are looking to expand upon. 2 long greenhouses would allow us to grow vegetables year round here on the homestead. Things like tomatoes, even collards, cauliflower, things like that, because it doesn't get super cold here. So we could grow easily through the winter in here in Mississippi if we had 2 long tunnels. Next is microgreen growing. We've had success with microgreens on previous homesteads and something we're looking at bringing back. We need to have a space where we can grow microgreens. Microgreens can sound very simple to grow. They're very delicious. They're very healthy for you. They are a natural attractant to bacteria because you're having moisture. And here in Mississippi, it's very easy to get funguses and bacterias and all kinds of weird things growing in there. So we want to develop a safe area for microgreens to grow. And so we're kind of been playing with this project now for the last 2 years. And I finally have buyers here in this market that are wanting to buy from me. So now we got to start kind of putting a little thought into actual action. But again, it comes into planning this up. The next thing that we're wanting to add on to our homestead is an outdoor operational kitchen. And it's not just for my pure vanity of being the homestead chef, but having a place where we can process chickens, we can break down lambs and sheep, goats, cows, whatever we need to do. That'll provide us an area also to make things like jams, jellies, hot sauces, goat's milk soap. That'll do a lot for us. That's a project that, again, it's going to take a while to be able to afford and build up to that. But again, it's part of our game plan and part of our project. And number 5, the last thing that we're wanting to add on that we're needing to plan for is rotational grazing. We kind of have a little bit of rotational grazing here. We've got 3 pastures and we kind of move them from one to the next. But generally speaking, we kind of just open the door. It gets too hot here sometimes to go in and individually move them from spot to spot. But I would like to split this pasture in half and then create different segments off of it so we can intensively rotate and graze our animals across it. I think that would help our animals to have strengthened. I think it would help our animals have better guts and being able to withstand things like barber pole and other parasites that are here in our soils. I also think this will help them put on better weight. It's kind of a great way that would allow us to strengthen our homestead, but that is going to cost a lot of money. Our number 4 step is to start developing and putting pen to paper on your long-term plan. I just gave you our 5 items that are part of our long-term plan. We need to start taking a look at our long-term plan and to go ahead and building that into our mindset of how we're mapping out our property. It's so easy to just put a structure up. And I'll be the first one to admit that that's one of our biggest mistakes that we make. We get gung-ho excited about something. We put a temporary structure up just for 3 years later for us to have to tear it down so we could put something else there. So take the time and make sure that we're putting pen to paper. And number 5, this can look different for every single person. But now that we've gotten all of this done, we've gotten our paper, we've taken our snapshot, we've looked at everything. Now we've planned out exactly what we want to do. We've looked at our long-term plan, how that's going to affect those around us and all the different elements. Next thing is to put paper into action. And I've got an amazing person here to help talk about it, because I think we're going to talk about our experience for a quick moment on our failures and why. Have you talked to us about, we're talking about building our homestead from scratch, all right?
Okay. Starkville.
All right,
that was pretty much scratch.
So we are talking, so what, bro? Dogs.
The dog ate my homework.
The dog ate my homework. Now, I was over here working in peace. Y'all were not bothering me at all.
They're doing exactly what the kids did. Mom's outside.
So we're talking specifically about mistakes that we made.
For sure.
What was we were talking about planning properly.
Right.
And so what were some of the projects that we did not plan or lacked good planning on? I can tell you one right off the distance.
Go for it.
The goats. We came home with goats and we didn't have anything up for them.
Yeah, Vinny and Mario. Yeah, we didn't have any infrastructure. We went and got goats and we're like, we're going to do this. And we got home and we're like, where are we going to put them?
Yeah.
So we had nowhere to put Vinny and Mario, these 2 dumb dogs. So yeah, we didn't have anything. We didn't have any infrastructure. We had a pole barn.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's nowhere
to... collapsing pole barn.
A collapsing pole barn. And there was just 8 poles and a roof. We were like, yeah, this is going to work.
Didn't have
No,
any
I don't
fence
think
around
so.
it.
I don't think so. That didn't work. So we really had to work quick, work hard, work smart. You quickly bought one of those electric
The electric netting from
netting
Premier Port.
from Premier
Premier
One,
One.
and that worked really well for a little bit. And then that's also because the next week we did what? We went and got sheep or goats or something.
Yeah.
Like we were just idiots. We're
Maybe.
like, hey, let's keep doing. Let's just keep, diving right into
Just
nothingness.
Basically like a bunch of drug addicts.
Yeah, we had an itch. So yeah, that's one thing that we did for sure that we probably didn't plan very, very carefully. And chickens, I feel like we did pretty good with chickens.
I think we made an error. Well, I think we built a huge coop that we built over across the property, and then we ended up not using that coop. It's using it for right now. It's empty. So we're talking about putting our plan into action.
Okay.
What's our plan?
What's our plan?
So let's go back to what we reviewed. Now that she is with us, let's review when. Because the first thing we did was we went to Google Maps. We went in. We took an aerial picture of our homestead, just like
what we did. Yes.
And so on the new homestead.
Yes.
And so basically from there, what we did was mark up what we're going to do. We marked up all of where our electrical was. We marked where all of our water is, where our barn and any infrastructure that we currently have, like fencing and things of that nature. Then from there, we wrote a list giving that infrastructure.
Yeah.
What can we actually do on the homestead realistically?
Right. And we can do a lot.
Yep.
We realized we could do a lot more than we thought we could. We thought we're like, oh, we're going to not have enough room for anything.
Yeah, there's plenty of room if you're doing it right.
There's a lot of room if you're doing it right.
These two wrestling behind us. It's like a WWE rink behind me.
100% of the time, those two. They're great, though. They're just playing and having fun.
Next, now we're talking about, putting that pen and paper to action. So I'd be interested to know what would be your plan of action without cheating and looking down at my notes. We're talking about putting pen to paper.
Okay.
What are your first 3 things that you're going to start doing?
Animals.
It could be whichever. It could be
the first in 2025.
Yeah.
Okay, first 3 things in 2025. I'm going to get more chicks.
We're talking about new homesteaders.
New homesteaders. Oh, fruit trees.
So fruit trees.
Fruit trees.
Okay, that's on my list as well. So fruit trees. Why fruit trees?
Because they take a minute to grow.
Yeah, they take 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, 3 to 5 years.
So 3 to 5 years before you start to get that.
No.
So 3 to 5 years before you start to get those first fruits off. We planted our fig trees about 3 years ago, and this is the first year we started to see some really good fig growth. I'm excited about that. I love fig jam. Really excited about that. So hopefully next year, if we grow pork, I can have some fig glaze on top of my pork. That sounds delicious.
That sounds delicious.
What would be your second thing that you start?
Second thing. The second thing, I would get a dog.
A dog?
I would do an LGD. Yeah.
Yeah.
Give them time to train up.
Oh, that's a good one. That's one that's not on my list.
Train them up. Yeah, because the first year they can't really do much anyways. Not in it. No. Don't get me wrong. The first year they're still puppies. So you're not going to like this one. You're not going to put this one in with chickens. He's way too immature. He needs more training. Right now he's in the pen with his mama. So she's going to help us train him, and we can't bring him inside right now. But you're going to house train them. You're going to get them potty trained. You're going to get them leash trained. You're going to get them trained to go to the vet. You're going to get them fixed. You're going to do all of those things that these guys need right here. So you're just going to love on them, and you're going to show them what is important. So during that next year and a half, as you're settling up your farm or your homestead, you're going to show them what's important. You're going to show them, don't dig up these plants, I hope. Don't dig up these bushes, or this is where the fence in. You walk the fence line. You show them this is where we stay. This is where we get out.
Don't tackle this animal. Don't eat this.
These are important to us. So they see you taking care of the animals. They will take care of the animals because you will have built up a relationship of respect for those animals, those plants, those things, your home, your kids. They will respect those things because they respect you, and you've built that respect.
Yeah.
It's all about respect.
All right, third one.
I'm not cheating. I'm not looking. Right. The third thing I would do is I think you could do this at the same time. Sorry, he's getting the back of my shirt. He's looking for attention. I think it would be between setting up a garden and getting chicks.
All right.
I think that could be something that you could do maybe simultaneously, but it depends on how much time you have.
Yeah.
Not everybody has
Yeah.
the zeal.
Yeah.
Or the child labor.
work.
Or the child labor.
Or the child labor. Ow.
Now he wants belly rubs. I can't. So I think that if you have little helpers, chicks or ducks are a great addition in the early phases of the homestead, especially when you can see those puppies. The puppies can see you taking care of those chicks as little ones. So when you add them in a couple years later, they've already seen them. It's nothing new. It's nothing brand new to you. And then the garden also, I think that would be something. It's kind of, I would start small.
Yeah.
And every year or so, you add on a little bit. Don't overwhelm yourself. I would do a raised garden.
Yeah.
Like we get old at some point and we're not going to be,
I'm still
tilling
these. I don't know about you.
It doesn't, but you work.
Yeah.
So you going out there and tilling rows is not going to happen.
Right.
So, and I shouldn't be tilling rows. After we had our 6th kid, my back was all bent out of shape. And so me on the mend of that, I'm not going to go out and till rows.
Yeah.
I love you.
No.
But we're doing raised beds. But I think if you add one raised bed every year, you could get in 3-4 years, you could have a huge garden with huge product that you could put up, you could take to the farmer's market, you could freeze, you could share with friends. That you'd have that and your chickens. And then if you added a livestock animal here or there, you would have a great little bitty homestead just for you guys set up, not overwhelming. You could do all that on half an acre.
Yeah. So I think you hit all 3 of mine there. So I'm really excited.
Yes.
So my 3 was the garden, chicks, and fruit trees.
Right.
So I'm telling you, that's 2
I just added the dog.
Yeah. I think that dog's a good one. So, so we're on camera. And so
Oh boy.
I want some clarification just so I don't get flack on YouTube. All right. Can you tell people what happened so people don't think that I'm a bad person?
What'd you do?
I didn't do it.
Oh, my face. Oh, my face. Yeah. Hey, no, I ran into a door.
I always get people give me the look.
I forgot my face. No, 2.5 weeks ago, the boys were playing. Our son has a band. They're very successful. They get paid to play. And I was really, we were setting up. You and the kids and your parents had gone in ahead of me. I was helping find stuff. Everything was broken in that moment. So I was trying to put things together. And they went in to order. I saw people going in behind them. And I'm like, I have the money. I have to hurry up and get inside. Open the first door. It's really, really heavy. Realize later, it's an exit only sign. That's why I was telling me to open. I went to the next door. Still, it was in that outside area, thinking it was going to be just as heavy. That bad boy was aluminum. I went, almost knocked myself out.
Concussion.
The whole bit. I was foggy
this is
for
3
a
weeks
week.
Of healing.
Yeah, this was 3 weeks of healing. You can go to my Facebook. I think I tagged him in a post or something, but it's awful. The bruising, the swelling, I was like this, all black and blue. My kids can testify.
I got lots of jokes, but
it was bad.
Yeah, I realized that my jokes were very inappropriate.
Yeah. So the rest of the evening, all the dads were like, "Hey, that's how we open a door." So
Well, hey, this has been a fun conversation. Again, if you are planning your homestead, we feel like we've had a great convo. And if you are learning more about your homestead, make sure you click over this way, right over here. There'll be more videos about our homestead and what we do here. If you're wanting to see specifically more about what our homestead looks like, hop over here. And then you'll see a great video that is a tour of the homestead.
Ooh,
and you'll
a
be
tour.
A tour.
Ooh, how fun.
So you can.
I've not seen that one.
So we can go get a grand tour of the homestead and what we do here. In the meantime, it has been fantastic. Make sure you leave your comments down below. We'll see you next time on Homesteading Chef.